Welcome to Synapse and Shadow. I'm Tegan Luad, and on this episode, we're exploring something deeply personal: the development of our natural, intuitive, and psychic abilities. I remember my first undeniable experience with energy work. I was practicing a simple grounding exercise, something I'd done dozens, maybe even hundreds of times before, when suddenly the energy wasn't just a visualization anymore. I could actually feel it, sense it. It was real, tangible, flowing through my hands like water. The sensation was so unexpected and so visceral that it startled me and broke the connection. But that moment changed everything. It marked the transition from working with energy as a concept to experiencing it as reality. Before that day, my magical practice had been mostly cerebral, following instructions, performing rituals, saying the right words, and basically running on faith. But after feeling that unmistakable current of energy, everything shifted. Suddenly, I understood why certain ritual movements were performed in specific ways. I could feel when a circle was properly cast instead of assuming it was working. My spell work became more focused, more effective, because I could sense the energy building and direct it with intention rather than just hoping it would flow where I wanted. But here's what I've learned since then. That breakthrough didn't happen by accident. It came after months of consistent practice, of learning to quiet my mind, of developing awareness of subtle sensations. And that's what we're going to explore today. Not just the theory of psychic development, but the practical steps that can help you develop these natural abilities. We'll look at traditional practices that have helped practitioners tap into these gifts for generations. We'll explore exercises you can try safely at home. And most importantly, we'll talk about how to recognize and trust your own unique way of experiencing these abilities. Whether you're just starting to explore your intuitive gifts or looking to deepen an established practice, this episode will give you concrete tools to work with. And for those of you following along in your field notes journal, you'll find exercises and tracking sheets specifically designed for this work. Before we begin, take a moment to ground yourself. Feel your feet on the floor, your breath in your body. Today's work is subtle but profound, and it's important to stay anchored as we explore these expanded states of awareness. Now that we're grounded, let's talk about what's actually happening when we sense energy or receive psychic information. Most of us first encounter these experiences through our bodies. It could be a tingling in our hands, a flutter in our solar plexus, or a pressure around the head. These feelings and physical sensations aren't random. They're often our first hint that we're engaging with what traditional practitioners call the subtle body, an intricate system of energy centers and channels that exist alongside our physical form. Think of your subtle body like a sophisticated antenna, constantly receiving and processing information from the world around you. Just as your physical body has various sensory organs, your eyes, your ears, your skin, your energy body has its own centers of perception. The ancients mapped these energy centers in remarkable detail. They gave us the chakra system, describing spinning wheels of energy that process different types of information. They charted the energy channels through which power flows. In yogic traditions, they called them nadis, and in traditional Chinese medicine, they call them jin lua. I just call them our meridians or our energy channels. They taught us about the aura, the layers of energy that extend beyond our physical form. But you don't need to memorize complex systems to begin working with these abilities. Your body already knows how to do this. What we're really doing is remembering, awakening abilities that have gone quiet in our modern world. Let's start by understanding the 4 main ways psychic information tends to come through. The 4 main ways psychic information comes through are sometimes called the clairs, from the French word meaning clear. Think of them as different channels on your psychic radio. Each one receives information in its own unique way. First, there's clairsentience. That's clear feeling. This is probably the most common way people first experience psychic information. You walk into a room and immediately feel the lingering tension from an argument that happened hours ago. You get a sudden heaviness in your chest when a friend is in trouble. Your hands tingle when you're working with energy. That's clairsentience at work. Then we have clairvoyance, clear seeing, but forget the Hollywood version of dramatic visions. Real clairvoyance is usually much more subtle. You might see quick flashes of images in your mind's eye, or notice recurring symbols and patterns. Some people experience it as an enhanced ability to visualize. Others might catch glimpses of energy fields or auras. Clairaudience, clear hearing, can be equally subtle. You might experience it as words or phrases that pop into your head, songs that play in your mind with oddly relevant lyrics, or even what seems like your own thoughts, but with a distinctly different quality to them. Some people actually hear sounds or voices, but more often it's an internal experience, like having a radio playing quietly in the back of your mind. Finally, there's claircognizance, clear knowing. And this is perhaps the most challenging to describe because it often arrives without any sensory component at all. You simply know something with absolute certainty without knowing how you know it. It's that instant recognition that something is true, even when you have no logical way of knowing it. Most people have 1 or 2 of these abilities that come more naturally to them. You might be primarily clairsentient with a touch of claircognizance, or mainly clairvoyant with some clairaudient experiences. There's no hierarchy here. No one clair is better than the other. They're just different ways of receiving information. The key to developing these abilities lies in first recognizing how they naturally manifest for you. When you get psychic information, how does it tend to come through? Do you feel it in your body? See it in your mind? Do you hear it? Do you just know it? Understanding your natural tendencies helps you focus your development efforts more effectively. Now let's learn how to recognize and work with each of these abilities more specifically. Okay, so now that we understand how psychic information comes in, let's look at where it's received, your energy body. Think of your physical body as just the densest layer of who you are. Around your physical body and through it flows your personal energy field or your aura. We talked about this a little in the first episode. If you remember way back, the studies conducted by the Heart Math Institute proved how the human heart generates a measurable electromagnetic field several feet beyond our physical bodies. That is our aura they were monitoring. And this isn't some mystical concept. It's your personal space, your energetic boundaries. When someone stands too close and you feel uncomfortable, that's your energy field interacting with theirs. When you sense someone staring at you from across the room, that's your energy field detecting attention directed at you. Your energy body has different layers. It has 7 layers, as a matter of fact. We're only going to talk about the first 3 today, but I promise we'll hit on the others in future episodes. Each one of these layers are vibrating at a different frequency. The closest to your physical body is the etheric layer. This is where you're most likely to first sense energy. It extends just a few inches from your skin, and it's where you'll often feel those little tingles or temperature changes during energy work. Beyond that are the emotional and mental layers extending further out. Those layers process emotional and mental energy, both yours and what you pick up from others. Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling drained, or spent time with someone and suddenly found yourself taking on their mood? That's these layers at work. When we talk about psychic development, we're really talking about becoming consciously aware of these subtle layers that you're already unconsciously working with all the time. It's not about gaining something new, it's about extending your awareness to what's already there. Now that we understand how the energy body works, let's explore how it feels firsthand. I'm going to guide you through your first conscious energy sensing experience. Don't worry about getting it right. This is about exploration and discovering your own unique way of perceiving energy. Remember how I mentioned that etheric layer, the one closest to your physical body? That's what we're going to work with first. It's often the easiest to sense, especially through our hands, because our hands are natural energy sensors. Think of them as your built-in energy detection tools. So if you're in a safe place to do this exercise, meaning you're not driving or operating machinery, I invite you to try this with me. If you're busy right now, just listen and you can try it later. It's pretty simple. You first rub your hands together briskly for about 10 seconds, creating friction and warmth. Now slowly separate your hands about 6 inches apart, palms facing each other. Keep your movements gentle and slow. So what do you notice in the space between your hands? There might be warmth or a slight tingling, maybe a feeling of pressure or resistance, like a subtle cushion of air. Some people sense what feels like a magnetic field. Others might feel a cool sensation. Whatever you notice, or even if you notice nothing at all right now, it's perfectly fine. Now, very slowly, move your hands a bit further apart. Then bring them closer together. Do you feel any difference? Any change in the sensation as the distance changes? Try shifting your hands so they're slightly misaligned. Does the sensation change? Some people find it easier to feel the energy when their hands aren't directly aligned. Now, keeping your awareness on these sensations, slowly bring one hand closer to your heart center while keeping the other hand extended. Notice if the sensation changes or intensifies. This simple exercise is working with your etheric field, that first layer of our subtle bodies, or the closest layer of energy we just talked about. The warmth and friction from rubbing your hands increases your awareness of this energy, making it easier to detect. Even if you didn't feel anything distinct this time, that's completely normal. Like any skill, seeing energy takes practice. Try this exercise at different times of day in different emotional states. You might find it's easier to sense in the morning or when you're particularly relaxed. All right, now that we've had a taste of consciously sensing energy, let's talk about how to develop this awareness further. Let me repeat, the key to psychic development isn't learning something new. It's about becoming more aware of what you're already sensing. Think of it like learning to taste wine. At first, you might only notice if it's red or white, sweet or dry. But as you practice, you'll start noticing the subtle flavors, hints of oak, notes of berry, layers of complexity that were always there, but you hadn't learned to identify yet. Developing psychic awareness works the same way. Start with these 3 fundamental practices. First, morning sensitivity practice. When you first wake up, before getting out of bed, take a moment to scan your body and energy field. Notice any sensations, impressions, or feelings. This works because your awareness is naturally more open in that space between asleep and awake. Second, practice energy hygiene. Just as you shower to keep your physical body clean, your energy body needs regular clearing. Simple practices like visualizing white light flowing through you or stepping outside to feel the wind against your skin, these help keep your energy channels clear and receptive. Third, start keeping a sensitivity journal. In your field notes, record any unusual sensations, unexplained knowing, or moments of connection. Looking back over these notes, you'll start to notice patterns, times of day when your sensitivity is heightened, situations that trigger your abilities, or even how the moon phases might affect your perception. But here's what's crucial and what often gets overlooked in psychic development. You need strong boundaries and grounding practices before diving deeper into this work. It's like learning to swim. You don't start in the deep end. You learn to float first, then to tread water, and then to move through it confidently. So let's talk about establishing those foundations. Your psychic foundations are all about grounding and shielding. Your psychic foundation skills. Think of grounding as your energetic roots and shielding as your energetic skin. You need both to work safely with energy. Let's start with grounding. Just about everyone has heard this before, but it is a simple and powerful practice that you can use anywhere, and it works. So feel your feet flat on the floor. Imagine roots growing down from the base of your spine, through your feet, and deep into the earth. These aren't delicate roots. They're strong, as thick as tree trunks. Feel them pushing down through the soil, through rock, all the way to the earth's core. and sense the earth energy flowing back up through these roots, filling you with stable, solid energy. Take a moment to really feel that connection and notice how your body responds. Many people feel heavier, more present, more in their physical form. And then you add shielding. Many traditions teach elaborate visualization techniques for this, but I've found that simpler is often better. Start by becoming aware of your personal space, that bubble of energy around you. And then imagine it becoming slightly firmer, like a soap bubble getting more substantial, or like a transparent eggshell. You're not creating an impenetrable wall. You're simply defining your energetic boundaries. I always think about Glinda the Good Witch and how she arrives in a bubble. That's basically what we're picturing now. The key is to make your shield permeable, like a cell membrane rather than a solid wall. It should allow you to project energy outwards and let energies that nourish you in while keeping out what doesn't serve you. And you should practice these foundations daily. Always ground before any psychic work or spell work. Check and refresh your shields regularly. If you start feeling scattered, unfocused, or overwhelmed, you should ground. If you're picking up too much from other people, you check your shields. Think of these practices like brushing your teeth. Basic maintenance that prevents problems before they start. The more you practice them, the more automatic they become until they're just part of your natural way of being. And now that we have these foundations in place, let's talk about how to safely explore and expand your abilities. So now that you have your basic grounding and shielding in place, let's explore how to consciously develop these natural abilities. Remember those 4 clairs we talked about earlier? Each one can be strengthened through specific practices. Let's start with clairsentience, since it's often the first ability people notice. Beyond just sensing energy between your hands, try this. Next time you're in a familiar place, your home, your favorite cafe, even sitting in your car, close your eyes for a moment. Notice how the energy feels in that space. What's the texture of it, the temperature, the density? Make this a regular practice and you'll start building a library of energy signatures. You'll learn how different spaces feel, how different emotions affect the energy of a room, how your own energy shifts throughout the day. For developing clairvoyance, start with a simple visualization exercise. Take an everyday object, a piece of fruit, a flower, your coffee mug. Look at it carefully. Then close your eyes and try to see it in your mind. Notice every detail. What happens when you try to rotate it in your mind's eye? Can you zoom in on specific parts? This isn't just imagination. You're training your inner sight, strengthening those psychic muscles that help you perceive visual information energetically. Once you're able to visualize a simple shape like a flower or an apple or your coffee mug, advance to more detailed things like a painting or an entire room, and just gradually make things more advanced. Okay. Now, clairaudient development often starts with listening to the spaces between sounds. Find a quiet moment and just listen. Beyond the obvious sounds, what else do you hear? Notice the layers of sound, the qualities of silence. Some people find it helpful to practice with white noise or running water. Notice what patterns or words might emerge. For claircognizance, start keeping track of your random thoughts and sudden insights. Which ones turn out to be accurate? Look for patterns. When do your strongest knowing moments tend to occur? What circumstances seem to enhance or block this ability? But, and this is important, and what many people ignore when developing these abilities, don't push. Development happens naturally when you create the right conditions. Think of it like growing a garden. You don't make plants grow by pulling on them. You create the right conditions, good soil, water, sunlight, and let nature take its course. The same applies here. Create the conditions, regular grounding, good energy hygiene, consistent practice, and let your abilities unfold naturally. Some days you'll have profound experiences. Other days, nothing much will happen. Both are perfectly normal and part of the process. Let's talk about one of the most challenging aspects of psychic development, knowing how to recognize, interpret, and handle the information you receive. How do you know if it's real or just imagination? First, we'll talk about how to recognize genuine psychic information. True initiative hits have a distinctive quality about them that sets them apart from ordinary thoughts or imagination. They often arrive suddenly without any logical build-up. One moment you're going about your day, and the next, the information is simply there in your awareness. These genuine hits tend to feel clear and neutral, lacking the emotional charge that usually comes with wishful thinking or worry. They arrive with a quiet certainty that feels different from regular thoughts, not demanding or insistent, just present and clear. Let me share a personal example. Years ago, I was about to leave for a friend's house when I suddenly had the clear impression that I should bring a spare phone charger. There was no logical reason for this thought. I had a fully charged phone, and I wasn't planning to stay long. The impression wasn't accompanied by anxiety about my battery dying or any other emotion. It was just a simple, clear knowing, bring your phone charger. Later that evening, my friend's charger broke, and several people needed to charge their phones during an unexpected power outage. This is how true intuitive information often comes: simple, practical, and without emotional attachment. These hits frequently seem random or unrelated to whatever you're consciously thinking about. They can appear to come out of nowhere, interrupting your regular thought patterns. This randomness is actually one of their distinguishing features. But where many people struggle distinguishing the genuine hits from wishful thinking or emanation, wishful thinking tends to tell you what you want to hear, or if you're a pessimist, what you fear you're going to hear. For instance, if you're trying to decide whether to take a job offer, wishful thinking might paint an elaborate picture of your perfect office and ideal colleagues. It comes with emotional attachment and often includes detailed justifications for why it's right. In contrast, a true intuitive hit might simply be a clear sense of not yet or wait for a better offer. Simple, unemotional, and without elaborate explanation. Your logical mind will try to jump in and analyze, interpret, or expand on these hits. This is where many people tripped up. The moment you start adding to the information or trying to figure out what it really means, you're likely moving away from the original insight. Practice noticing the difference between the initial hit and your mind's commentary about it. In your field notes journal, try recording the raw impressions separately from any interpretations or analysis. This helps train you to recognize that distinct quality of pure intuitive information. Now, about sharing this information, this requires careful discernment. Just because you receive information doesn't mean you're meant to share it. Ask yourself these questions. Is the information helpful? Did I receive it for my own guidance? Would sharing it serve a constructive purpose? And is the other person open to receiving it? Sometimes you might get information about someone else's personal matters. Unless they've explicitly asked for your insight, that information might be meant to help you navigate your interaction with them, not for you to share. Here's a practical approach to handling intuitive hits. Number 1, notice the information without immediately acting on it. Take some time. 2, always record it in your journal. Number 3, notice if you receive any guidance about what to do with the information. Number 4, if in doubt, wait. And number 5, watch for confirmation or clarification to emerge naturally. Remember, having psychic abilities doesn't make you responsible for other people's paths or choices. Sometimes the most ethical use of your intuition is simply to inform your own actions and decisions. And now that we understand how to work with intuitive information responsibly, let's talk about integrating these practices into daily life. The goal isn't to set aside hours for psychic development. It's to weave awareness into your regular routines. Start with natural transition moments in your day. Your first morning stretch, perfect time for an energy scan. Waiting for your coffee to brew, practice sensing the energy around you. Commuting to work, notice the shifting energy landscapes as you move through different spaces. Here are some simple ways to practice throughout your day. When you pick up your phone, pause for just a moment before checking who's calling or texting. What do you sense about the incoming communication? Just notice, with no pressure and with no expectations. Before opening your emails, run your hand over your screen or desk. Notice if different areas feel different. Some people sense hot spots where important messages are waiting. When you meet someone new, notice your first energetic impression before they even speak. Don't judge your impressions, just observe them. Later, you can note in your field notes journal whether those first hits were accurate. Keep your grounding practices simple and practical. If you're feeling scattered at work, press your feet firmly into the floor while typing. If you're overwhelmed at the grocery store, imagine those roots growing down while you're walking the aisles. Your shield doesn't have to be a complex visualization. It can be as simple as taking a deep breath and remembering your boundaries. Some people imagine adjusting their personal space like turning a dimmer switch, brighter in situations requiring more awareness, and dimmer when they need to focus on mundane tasks. The goal isn't to be psychic all the time. That would be exhausting and impractical. The goal is to develop a comfortable awareness that you can tune into when needed and dial back when appropriate. Like any other sense, you want to be able to focus it when useful and let it rest when not needed. As you integrate these practices, you'll likely notice some interesting changes. Dreams might become more vivid. Coincidences might increase. You might find yourself arriving at insights more quickly or making decisions more confidently. These are all normal signs of your intuitive abilities strengthening. So, as we wrap up today's exploration of psychic development, remember this. These abilities aren't mysterious gifts granted to a chosen few. They're natural sensitivities we all possess, even if they've gone quiet in our busy world. Think of today's practices as first steps in awakening these natural abilities. Like any skill, psychic development takes time, patience, and consistent practice. Some days you'll feel incredibly tuned in. Other days you might feel disconnected, and both experiences are perfectly normal parts of the journey. Keep your field notes handy. Document your experiences, your questions, your successes, and challenges. Over time, patterns will emerge that help you understand your unique way of connecting with subtle energies. For those following along in your journals, you'll find practice sheets for each of the exercises we covered today. Take your time with them. There's no race to develop these abilities. In fact, pushing too hard often blocks the progress. Let your practice unfold naturally. Remember your foundations: to ground regularly, to maintain healthy boundaries. Trust your experience, practice discernment, and keep it simple. On our next episode, we'll dive deeper into magical energy itself, what it is, how to sense it, raise it, direct it, and work with it effectively. We'll explore different types of magical energy, from personal power to natural forces, and learn how to tap into these currents safely and effectively. Until then, keep practicing, stay grounded, and trust your process. This is Tegan Luad, reminding you to keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep dancing between worlds.